city of Bath is one of the most desirable places to live in Britain. It's a World Heritage Site, with Roman spas and grand Georgian properties. Alan and Alison Garrett have lived here for over 30 years. In 1992, Alan sold his successful engineering company and used the proceeds to invest in their dream development, a grand design-style home for their retirement. They bought a 4-acre plot, surrounded by beautiful woodland, in a prime spot just 2 miles outside Bath, for a bargain £38,000.
It was a special site, you know, it had the wildlife in it, badgers, foxes, deer, frogs, toads, newts. What more can you want? A lot of birds. And it had a lot of potential.
The home they built was cutting edge. Articles were written about it.
This was an exposition of grand designs. You know, it's a great veneer, but unfortunately, the actual engineering behind it just never worked.
It was a dream in the architect's mind. The builders built as they saw it, but the technical substance just wasn't there.
And the technical side of things was down to the architects. The concept was 2 separate buildings linked by a walkway. The smaller 4-bedroomed house was for them, and the larger property was for other members of their family. The whole project would cost £415,000 to build. And 3 years later, both houses were almost ready. But problems started before they even moved in.
I went and had a look. We just had to mooch around. Oh, yeah. Oh. And I noticed while I was doing this that some of the floorboards were actually wet and getting wetter. And it wasn't raining. And I'm thinking, where's all this damp coming from?
All houses create moisture, but this was way beyond what would normally be expected. The damp in the smaller house was so bad they couldn't live there. So they moved into the property next door, where they discovered even more problems.
The kind of issues that we've had with the conservatory are mostly associated with condensation. It quite literally drips off the roof onto the floor and, unfortunately, onto anything that is in between. Quite literally, you were turning the sound up on the television to overcome the drip noise. And you think, no, this is crazy. We have the only conservatory with an internal gutter because it literally catches the drips. And of course, wherever you've got these drips, you get mould. So you've got lots and lots of mould.
And in the main bedroom, there's more mould and even more condensation.
You can actually mop it up, do the round of the building, which will take you half an hour, and when you come back, it'll be reforming. So it's always there. I've now been doing that for 9 years. It does make me cross.
Continually, we were going back to the architect and saying, look, this problem hasn't been resolved. And at that point, I was beginning to feel frustrated because problems were not being resolved. But I was also beginning to feel quite suspicious of the assurances that, you know, problems would go away. And really and truly, you want to believe that. You don't want to believe that it's a huge problem that's just going to crawl out the woodwork and destroy your life. You want to believe their assurances, so you do.
You hear these assurances, we can fix it, we will fix it. That never happened.
I want to get a surveyor in to actually tell me whether this house is good or bad. So that was the point in which I contacted a local surveyor called David Mills.
David prepared this test section of the wall.
Okay. The black that you can see here is actually a tanking membrane. So once moisture gets behind that tanking membrane, it can't go anywhere else. And when we first opened it up, could feel this membrane moving. When David put his knife into this membrane and water gushed out, it was like taking the plug out of the bath. And you think, water and timber? Don't think they should go together like that.
If you squeezed it, the water would have come out of the timber. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that before. It was probably the worst case I've seen in my life.
The water's drained away now, but the timber frame is still rotten.
The two timber plates here are literally...
That's the wall plate.
Crumbling. There's no strength. You can see it just moving in my finger. Just push my nail into it. It has no strength, and the only thing now is for its replacement.
David discovered the cause. It was down to the ventilation system and the air vents.
The way they were designed was they've just finished flush there with the membrane over the surface and a wire mesh there, so that the moisture only had one way to go, which was down. Now, if the pipe had been extended right through the render to the outer face, the moisture would then have gone down the outer face of the render over the stone and not caused any problem.
It's gutting. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. I mean, you know, for the sake of 3 inches of plastic pipe and an air brick, we've got hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of repair.
Both buildings are affected, and every single rotten timber will have to be replaced. They decided to sue the architects and instructed solicitors.
The kind of things that we've got in here, quite literally, folders and folders and folders of paper. Reports done by surveyors, reports done by expert architects, and there's reports like this, 25 grand. There's reports like this, a couple of grand. So it's a huge amount of money. Our claim was for about $750,000, because you claim not just for the repair of the building, but the costs involved in pursuing the claim if you win it.
It took 3 years and cost them £180,000 to prepare the case. So to avoid an expensive court hearing, they decided to go for mediation. But it wasn't straightforward.
The architect's practice was practicing with the minimum amount of insurance that architects are supposed to practice with. That's £250,000. Now, we were making a claim against them of £750,000. So there was obviously quite a large gap.
Even though the architects never accepted liability, in the end, their insurance company offered Allen & Allison £130,000, knowing it would cost them far more to take the case to court.
To actually pursue a claim, to have the claim recognised as valid, to actually win, but to still have a loss, and to start a building that was in dire straits, that still needed an enormous amount of work doing to actually make it habitable. You think, well, this is just crazy, pinch me, I'm obviously dreaming, this is a nightmare. You know, I've got to wake up from this.
But it was their best option, even though the house is worthless.
We took the offer from the insurers of the practice and took the hit. This site should be worth £1 million. It is the grand design £1 million house. In actual fact, we'd probably make more money from the site selling as an undeveloped site than actually trying to sell it with these buildings on it. So we'd be better off actually having a big bonfire and selling the site clear. And that is gutting. That is not a dream. That's a disaster.
Do we put it to the right-hand mark or the left-hand mark?
Well, it goes to the left-hand mark because the right-hand mark ain't there no more.
Okay.
But they're not ready to give up yet. So they're doing the repairs themselves.
The house up, pull out the rotten timber, put in a new piece of timber and then let the house down. Nightmarish, nightmarish. Plus the fact that you think to yourself, well, you know, I sure hope this works.
They've been repairing their home for almost 3 years. The rotten timbers in the smaller house have been replaced, and now the scaffolding's coming down.
This is a big day for us. Hopefully we'll be able to see the building in its final state. It's actually a significant step towards getting to the end, which is where we want to try and get to.
It's been 10 years since this project began, and by the time the houses are finished, they'll have spent over £800,000.
It may not be the beginning, it may not be the end, but at least you feel that you've got beyond the beginning and you're approaching the end.
And I haven't counted how many planks we put up there, but we put every plank up.
It's really pleasing to see the fruit of your own labours.
But they still have to redecorate the whole place. And once that's done, they'll have to do the same again on the second building.
That's the hard part. The fact that it should have happened 10 years ago, and it's still a ways to go yet.
My hopes are that yes, we can actually live in this building and enjoy it, and enjoy the site that it's on, without continually thinking what is rotting.